Why did God let me survive, but not my wife? That's the question I've been asking myself every single day. And to this day, I still don't have an answer. But I do have a story that begins with my death. That day, it wasn't just rain that came pouring down. It was everything I once believed to be solid, steady, and true. My name is Micah Rowen, just an ordinary name for a very ordinary man, at least until the day the sky ripped the roof off my home like tearing a sheet of paper. It happened on a May afternoon in Kentucky. A tornado, no warning, no mercy, no one spared. And when you're suspended between life and death, with your wife screaming somewhere beneath the wreckage and the wind screaming just as loud around your ears, you don't think about big things. You just hold on if you can. You think about only one thing. How did it come to this? They say a tornado only lasts a few minutes, but in those few minutes, I watched my whole life slip away. I fell into darkness. I left my body. And I saw things no one would believe, not even me. This isn't a story meant to convince you or to make you decide whether you believe it or not. This is the story of a man who had to die to learn how to live again. I used to think I was strong. I used to think faith was a luxury. I used to think loving someone made you weak. But when you're pulled out of your body, suspended among souls who've already passed, and you see your wife still calling your name even though you can no longer answer, you begin to understand. The most important thing in life is never the thing you've been chasing. It's what you left behind. How can a man be dead and still hear his daughter's prayer from the other side of the city? How could I know what my wife whispered in her final moment after my heart had already stopped? The answer isn't found in this world. Before the sky fell, I had already fallen on the inside. But you won't understand what I mean until you know what kind of man I was before the storm came. As a child, I used to be afraid of thunder. I imagined it as the roar of some angry god punishing mankind. But as I grew older, I learned something else. The loudest thunder doesn't come from the sky. It comes from deep within your soul. I was a man who had everything except presence. A house big enough that we could walk past each other without saying a word. A car expensive enough to hide the rusting emotions inside. A family big enough to look happy from the outside, but too far apart to ever truly touch. My wife, Rachel, was the only one who still believed in the good left in me long after I had stopped believing in it myself. And my daughter, Ellie, once wrote in her diary, "Dad is so close, but he feels like the farthest one in the house." I was an electrical engineer good at fixing any system except the one inside myself. I knew how to make lights turn on, but I didn't know how to make my daughter smile. I could spend hours staring at a tangled circuit board, but I wouldn't spare 5 minutes to sit and talk with my wife. I wasn't a bad man. I was just disconnected. I told myself it was work that I was providing for my family. But the truth is, I was hiding from wounds that had never healed, hiding from the fear of facing my wife's eyes that once loved me, once forgave me, and were now quietly dimming. The night before the tornado hit, I slept on the couch, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. Outside, the rain tapped softly on the windows. Inside, something else was rotting away. The silence. I remember thinking, maybe I should apologize. But then came the next thought. I'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow never came the way I thought it would. I assumed I still had time. But the truth is, death doesn't send a warning. And the worst part of a storm isn't when it hits. It's when you realize you never really lived before it did. I used to worry I'd lose my family, but I never imagined that one gust of wind could bring down both my house and the man I used to be. That morning was so painfully ordinary. I sat there sipping coffee, staring blankly at the weather report, just like I did every other morning. The same numbers, the same blinking radar maps. No one ever believes that a single red dot on the screen can rip their life apart in a matter of hours. I remember Ellie asking, "Dad, can you take me to Aunt Jess's? She has a storm shelter there." I mumbled, "Yeah, I'll check on that in a bit." But I never did. By noon, the sky had changed not gray, but a pale, sickly green, like a storm rising from the inside out. Not a single bird sang. There was no wind, nothing at all, except a thick, suffocating silence, like death itself was holding its breath, waiting to explode. And then it came. No warning, no choice. The shrieking howl tore through the sky. Metal crashed against metal. I heard Rachel scream from the kitchen. I heard Ellie yell, "Daddy," from the stairs. I ran, but before I could get to them, something struck my head like a hammer from heaven. I came to just seconds later, buried beneath the wreckage. My eyes opened, but the world was shattered. Everything was spinning. The wind roared like a wild beast. The windows were gone. The walls ripped clean away. The refrigerator lay sideways on a pile of broken bricks. Rachel, where was she? I screamed, but all I heard was a strangled sound caught in my throat. Dust, smoke, and blood. I didn't know whose blood it was, but it was warm, running down my wrist. I tried to crawl out, pulling my leg free from a splintered beam lodged deep into the flesh. And then came a scream that tore through my chest like it was splitting my heart in two. "Ellie!" There was no answer, only wind, a furious, howling wind, as if the sky itself was weeping for what it was about to take away. I dragged myself into the living room, just in time to see the entire roof lifted off like a piece of paper. And in that moment, I flew. Not with my feet, not by choice, but by a force greater than anything I'd ever known. It pulled me upward, then hurled me across the room. Like a toy tossed aside, he slammed me into the kitchen pillar. I heard bones snap. I heard my heart beat. And then I heard it stop. I could feel it. My body was no longer mine. There was no pain, no fear, only a sense that I was drifting. Everything began to fade. Sounds grew distant, like they were being swallowed by water. I heard Rachel screaming my name, but her voice came from another world, muffled, far away. I wanted to scream back, but I had no mouth. I wanted to reach for her, but I had no hands. All I had left was awareness, and it was slipping away from this world. And in that final moment, I no longer asked, "Why me?" I asked, "Did I ever tell them I loved them in time?" But death wasn't the end. It was a door, and what waited for me on the other side of that door wasn't light. It was a darkness so haunting, it chilled me to the core. I'd always heard people talk about a bright light at the end of the tunnel. But what I saw first was darkness. Not the kind you see when you close your eyes. This was deeper. So deep, you couldn't tell if you were standing, floating, or dissolving into nothing. I couldn't feel gravity. I couldn't hear a thing. There was no heartbeat, no breath, no form. Just awareness drifting through an endless void. A place without time, without a name, without answers. Only questions rising from somewhere deep within. Who am I when there is no body left? Did I live my life, or just a version of it shaped by fear? If given the choice, would I even deserve to return? And then I began to see myself again. Moments from my life flashed before me like old film reels playing in reverse. The day I first met Rachel. The moment I didn't make it home for Ellie's 7th birthday. The invisible slap I gave my wife through silence. The hug I refused because I thought real men don't show weakness. I watched myself like a stranger in the crowd, and I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. Compassion. Compassion for the man who once believed that to be strong meant never showing softness. Compassion for the man who ran from love because he never learned how to receive it. I used to blame life for being the storm. But what I didn't see was that I had been the one tearing through the people I loved, like wind ripping shingles from a roof. And then I heard singing, not from someone else, but from somewhere deep within my soul. It was soft, warm, full of ache, like a lullaby sung to a child who had just lost their mother. Then came a voice, familiar enough to break my heart. Micah. I turned, not with a body, but with the whole of my soul. She was standing there, Rachel. No trace of exhaustion from sleepless nights. No more eyes worn down by quiet suffering. Only a gentle light, so tender it hurt to look at her. "I thought you weren't coming back," she said. "I thought you'd disappear, without ever understanding what mattered." I wanted to cry, but I had no tears. All I had was regret layered deep across my soul like a weight I couldn't no longer carry. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for living like I had all the time in the world. I'm sorry for making love something that had to wait." Rachel placed her hand over my heart, or whatever part of me still resembled one, and said softly, "Not everyone gets to die and then come back. But I believe you're not finished yet. You still have a reason." "A reason?" "Ellie." The moment she said our daughter's name, I heard crying. Not a memory, right now, from the other side of life. Ellie's voice echoed through the darkness like a single thread pulling me back toward the world of the living. "Daddy, don't leave me. You're not allowed to go." I turned to Rachel. She smiled, both a release and a blessing. "You know what you have to choose now, don't you? Don't go back and live the same way. If you return, then really live." And then I fell. Not downward, but back into my body. Back into the pain, the whirring of machines, the sharp scent of antiseptic. Back into a world where people were still holding on to me. I heard a nurse shout, "We've got a pulse!" And I breathed. For the first time in what felt like forever, a breath that belonged to someone alive. But I knew I was no longer the same man. I had died, and I had been born again. I didn't come back just to exist. I came back to live. But how do you live differently in the same old house, in the same old town, with wounds that never fully healed? I woke up in a body that no longer felt like mine. I didn't recognize myself. Tubes, wires, the sterile smell of alcohol and medicine. Machines beeping in rhythm, keeping time for a life just regained. Outside, the rain still fell. But inside, I knew I had returned from a place that words will never be able to describe. The first person I saw when I opened my eyes was Ellie. She was sitting there, hair messy, face streaked with dirt, but her eyes were shining. "Daddy, please don't leave again." I couldn't speak. All I could do was lift my weak hand and wrap it gently around hers. I had once lived out of duty. Now I live for connection. I used to think I had to be strong. Now I'm learning to be weak with courage. I used to run from intimacy. Now I'm learning to sit still and truly listen. When I was discharged from the hospital, I returned to what used to be my home. There was nothing left, just a cold slab of foundation and an oak tree snapped and fallen. This had once been my house. Now it was only a scar. And yet, for the first time in my life, I felt fully present. I stood in the middle of that wreckage and gave thanks. It wasn't until after I left the hospital that I found the courage to go to the one place I had avoided most, the small cemetery on Willow Hill. The place where Rachel was buried. The place I once swore I would never set foot in, unless she went before me. The car came to a stop beneath the shadow of a newly planted oak, the only living thing left after the storm. I stepped out of the car, a bouquet of purple flowers in my hand, the kind Rachel used to love, though I never once bought them for her while she was alive. People often say, "The dead rest easy, it's the living who suffer." But I don't see it that way. The dead leave behind spaces no words can ever fill. I stood in front of the simple white headstone. No epitaph, no quote, just a name. Rachel Ann Rowen. And just below her name, a small line Ellie had chosen. She gave even when she had nothing left. I sat down, like a child who had lost his mother. I couldn't speak. I could only listen to the silence. "I'm sorry for everything I left undone. I know you don't need to hear apologies anymore. But I need to say it, so you'll know you taught me how to live through the very act of dying." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small folded note, a letter I had written to her from the hospital. I didn't read it aloud. I simply placed it at the base of the stone, nestled in the grass. The wind stirred gently. A yellow butterfly landed softly on the edge of the flowers. I stood, took one step back, quiet. But inside, there was no panic like the day the tornado came. Only one feeling. She heard me. I turned to walk down the hill, then paused. Something tugged at me. I turned back, pulled a pen from my pocket, and wrote one final line on the edge of that white stone, in permanent ink. I'll see you again, but next time with no regrets. I couldn't hold on to her, but I could hold on to the promise to live a life worthy of what she gave up so I could have a second chance. I didn't start over with anything grand. I started with small things, but things that were real. Cooking breakfast for Ellie with my own hands. Writing letters to Rachel, even though she's no longer here. Walking through the neighborhood each evening, saying hello to every person I pass. Smiling just because the sun is shining. Crying when Ellie plays her mother's old song on the piano. I also went to church for the first time in 15 years. Not to ask for anything, but to say that I understood. I understood why God didn't stop the storm. I understood why Rachel didn't return with me. Because if I hadn't lost, I never would have learned how to hold on. Because if I hadn't died, I never would have learned how to truly live. One day, I was invited to speak at Ellie's school. One of the teachers said, "We heard you had a near-death experience, and we want our students to understand what it means to live a meaningful life." I stood in front of those kids, nervous. I wasn't a speaker. I was just a survivor. But I spoke from the heart. A meaningful life isn't about doing something big. It's about showing up for the people you love. And I ended with this. Don't wait until you're dying to finally start living. I once died in a tornado, but what I brought back wasn't fear. It was an answer. And if you're feeling lost in this life, maybe that answer is for you too. I used to ask, why did God let me survive, but not Rachel? After everything, I've come to believe it wasn't a punishment, it was a calling. Life after the storm hasn't been easy. There are still sleepless nights. There are still rains that bring back the sound of the howling wind. And there are still mornings when I reach across the bed only to touch a cold pillow, a space that will never again hold my wife's warmth. But one thing has changed. I'm no longer afraid to face myself. I'm no longer just getting through the days. I choose to live with all the wounds, all the memories, and all the unfinished things still waiting to be made whole. When you come back from the edge of death, you bring many things with you. But the most precious of them isn't the strange story you witnessed. It's the resolve not to waste the chance you've been given. Every day now, I write one line in a small notebook. What did I live for today? And no 2 days are ever the same. Some days, it's for Ellie. Some days, it's for Rachel. And some days, it's for strangers I barely know, but can see in their eyes the same kind of loss I once carried in mine. Once, a young man, maybe 20 years old, came up to me after I gave a talk at church. He asked, "Sir, how do you live in a way that leaves no regrets?" I didn't answer right away. I just said, "Don't wait until you die to learn how to live. Live each day as if the people you love are watching over you, because maybe they are." I still visit Rachel from time to time. I bring flowers sometimes. Just a silly story Ellie told me. I don't cry the way I used to. I just sit and talk to her as if she can still hear me. Because in my heart, she never really left. And now, when someone asks me, "Do you believe in spiritual things, in near-death experiences?" I just smile. It's not just that I believe. I died to learn it's real. I died that day not because my heart stopped beating, but because the old version of me, cold, distant, disconnected, was finally laid to rest. And the man sitting here today is the one Rachel gave her life to awaken. If you still have the gift of waking up tomorrow morning, don't live the same. Don't love the same. Don't stay silent like before. Because you don't know how many days you have left to tell someone you're still here. If you've ever had a moment that made you look back on your entire life, share it in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to begin their healing. And if something you heard today stirred your heart even just a little, hit follow. Because here, we're not just telling near-death stories, we're learning together how to truly live.